big test you got that's not big on. 21 questions, but really that's not the number. There was already over here more than that. This would be like one question. This would be one question. Gives you a total of 87 total points, which is about standard for my physics test, somewhere in that neighborhood. There are 5 matching definitions. So turn to the end of the chapter. Go to page 68. If you look on page 68, there are key terms there. Hopefully by now they've annotated which ones I want and which ones you don't have to worry about. But just to make sure, of the 5 you need: acceleration, displacement, instantaneous velocity, free fall, and dynamics. Dynamics is not there. If it isn't, please write it in there, and it's on page 43. The one you don't have to worry about, which is average velocity, if I remember correctly, and frame of reference. Then, after that, and the definitions will be exactly what's out of the book. Then you've got 8 Big 4 questions or so. They may not all necessarily be Big 4, but you need the Big 4 equations on your note card, along with probably that average velocity and average acceleration. But if they do not ask for the words average velocity or average acceleration, you do not use the average formulas at all. Okay? Unless they're asking for average, you don't use them. Sometimes in some of the homework, some of you use those when you didn't need to. The Big 4 derived from those formulas. Okay. When it comes to the Big 4, nothing fancy. It's the same old stuff we've been doing. Keep in mind, if it says it's being dropped, when you're dropping something, it doesn't seem like there's a whole lot of stuff there, but you know what's the initial velocity and what's the acceleration. Boom. So there's 2 of them they don't say at all anything about, but they're there. Brandon.
Are you always going to have positive answers, like even though acceleration would be...
Keep in mind when you're dropping it, acceleration's negative, displacement is actually going to be negative, and velocity will also be negative. So there's one of the homework questions people had, what's the final velocity? And they had the number, but it's actually because it was going down, it's going to be negative. When you take the square root of something, you either have a positive answer or a negative answer. You can't take the square root of a negative number. The way that is gone is because of the displacement's negative, usually. But your answer could be either positive or negative. Just keep in mind which direction you're going. So the Big 4, I would say, are not necessarily outlandishly tricky. I hope. Then, there's only 3 short answers. We've probably beat the short answer stuff with a dead horse with the lab quest, okay? But those are the same kind of things. When the ball goes up in the air, talked about it several times. What's your velocity? How's your velocity change? Acceleration the whole time. Maybe some questions involving something like this. Rates of falling, a lot of different things, but nothing that you probably have to go crazy for. That's kind of covered a lot in those. So hopefully if you got those, you got those all figured out. Then there's one graph where I give you some data, like I did on the first test, and you just have to graph it and maybe analyze the data. When you're asked to analyze the data, I'm really looking for what's the relationship between the variables, and I'm looking for answers like linear or straight lines, quadratic or a parabola probably, and then or the inverse where one goes up, the other one goes down. Those are the main things we're going to study. So that's the kind of stuff I'm looking for. Short, concise, to the point. Everybody can understand what you're getting at. And the last one is one of these, and I'll go through that here in a minute, besides those other two. I'll explain this here in a minute. We've kind of done them, but we really haven't. You have, when all you're sketching in the lab question, I'll show you what the question's going to be like for me.